That night, in the small room Clara showed me clean sheets. A quilt that smelled of lavender lay awake, the wind moaning outside. My mind replayed the day, the shove from my brothers, the jolt of the wagon, Jack's steady gaze. What was I doing here? A pawn in a cruel game, yet already this place felt like a bomb on old wounds. But doubt crept in like shadows would. He learned the truth and cast me out. And why did the thought of his blue eyes, so guarded yet kind, make my heart ache with longing? Dawn came too soon, the sky streaked pink over the plains. I rose before the rooster, determined to earn my keep. No more being a burden. I scrubbed the porch steps, the wood gleaming under my hands, then headed to the garden, pulling weeds with a fervor that burned off my nerves. Clara joined me later, her chatter light as birdsong. Jack's out with the hands mending fences. He's quiet, but he's got a good heart. Lost a lot, you know his wife, Sarah, in that raid. Broke him for a spell. Her words hit like a gut punch. Sarah beautiful, bold, Sarah. How could I compare? But Clara squeezed my arm. You're different, Eliza, strong in your own way. Give it time. The morning wore on, the sun climbing high and merciless. I fetched water from the creek, the bucket heavy, but the rhythm soothed me. Then, without warning, a rumble echoed from upstream, a flash flood, born from some distant storm, turning the gentle stream into a roaring beast. Water surged, brown and furious, sweeping calves from the bank. I dropped the bucket, plunging in without thinking, the cold shocking my skin as I grabbed for a struggling animal. Hold on. I yelled, but the current yanked me under, water filling my mouth, panic clawing at my throat. I fought, arms thrashing, lungs burning. This was at the end, in a muddy grave. But then strong arms encircled me, pulling me up. Jack, his face grim, water streaming from his hat. He hauled me and the calf to shore, his breath ragged. Damn fool thing to do, he growled, but his eyes held worry, not anger. Our hands clasped in the mud, slick and trembling, and in that moment, something sparked, a bond forged in peril, electric and raw. We staggered back to the house, drenched and shaking. Clara fussed over us with blankets and hot coffee, her voice a mix of scold and relief. You two are gonna give me grey hairs. But as Jack and I sat by the fire, drying out, the air thickened with unspoken words. He stared into the flames, his profile sharp in the glow. Why'd you risk it? He asked quietly. For the calf. And maybe to prove I belong, I whispered, my voice cracking. Vulnerability hung between us, heavy as the storm clouds outside. He turned, those blue eyes meeting mine, softening. You don't gotta prove nothin', Eliza, not to me. His hand brushed mine, rough yet tender, sending warmth straight to my core. Was this the start of healing, or just another heartbreak waiting in the wings? The days that followed blurred into a tentative rhythm. I threw myself into ranch, work mending saddles, feeding chickens, even helping Clara bake pies that filled the house with sweetness. Jack was often out riding the range, his silhouette against the horizon stirring a quiet yearning in me. I'd catch myself watching him, admiring the way he handled a horse with effortless grace, his muscles flexing under his shirt. It was foolish, this flutter in my chest, but it grew. Fed by stolen glances and brief conversations at supper. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of fire, Jack found me by the corral, stroking a mare's neck. "She's taken to you," he said, leaning on the fence, his voice low. "Animals see the heart, not the face," I replied, echoing Grandma's wisdom. My cheeks heated under his gaze. He nodded, a faint smile tugging his lips, the first I'd seen. "People can too, if they bother lookin'." The words hung there, charged, making my pulse race. Push and pull, he drew me in. Then the walls came up, his past a shadow between us, but trouble brewed. Whispers from town trickled in via Sheriff Tate, a burly man with a mustache like a broom and eyes sharp as tacks. He rode up one afternoon, dust trailing his horse. "Harlan, word spreading 'bout your new bride. Harrington's claiming you took her as pity payment for some old debt. Folks a token." Jack's jaw tightened, but he waved it off. "Let 'em talk. She's family now. To me later," he added. "Don't let it eat at you. You're here 'cause you chose to be." His protectiveness wrapped around me like a warm coat, but fear gnawed. What if Silas and Wyatt came calling? The thought chilled me, even as Jack's presence ignited sparks of hope of love, maybe blooming in this harsh land. Then came the snake, gathering herbs in the scrubland, the dry brush crunching under my boots. I didn't see it until too late, a rattler, coiled and striking, fangs sinking into my boot. Pain exploded, hot and venomous, dropping me to my knees. I cried out, the world spinning, poison coursing like fire through my veins. Jack found me, his face pulling us, he scooped me up, riding like the wind through the night for Doc Ellis in town. "Hang on, darlin'," he urged, his voice breaking a crack in his armor that revealed the man beneath. At my bedside, as the fever raged, he held my hand, whispering stories of his youth, his losses, his quiet dreams. I awoke to his vigil, rough fingers intertwined with mine, and in that haze, I felt at the pull of something profound, a love stirring from the ashes of our pains. But as I mended, shadows loomed. Silas and Wyatt's vengeful whispers reached outlaws' ears, and one dawn, gunfire shattered the peace. Bullets riddled the house, glass flying. Jack grabbed his pistol, standing tall in the doorway, his shots precise and deadly, felling to attackers with cowboy grit that made my heart swell with admiration and terror. I barricaded doors, heart pounding, as Clara took a stray bullet to the shoulder. Blood soaked her dress, and I pressed cloth to the wound, my hands steady despite the fear. "We'll make it," I told her, drawing strength from Jack's unyielding stand. The sheriff's posse arrived, driving off the rest, but in the quiet aftermath, as dawn broke golden, Jack pulled me close. "You fought like hell, Eliza. You're the light I didn't know I needed." His kiss, stolen amid the chaos, was fire and promise, leaving me breathless with curiosity for what lay ahead and a love that promised to heal us both. The dust whipped across the Montana plains like a devil's lash, blinding everything in its fury. I stood on the sagging porch of our sorry excuse for a homestead, my auburn hair tied back in a ragged knot, freckles standing out like specks of rust on my pale skin. The storm howled, choking the air with grit that stung my eyes and filled my lungs. But it was nothing compared to the storm raging inside me. My brothers, Silas and Wyatt, their laughter cutting through the wind like rusty knives, shoved me toward the rickety wagon hitched to a pair of sway-backed mules. "Go on, Eliza, get in there. Your unmarryable freight now might as well fetch us some gold while you're at it." Silas bellowed, his whiskey breath hot on my neck. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms until I felt the warm trickle of blood. How many times had I swallowed their poison? Ma, with her pinched face and eyes like dried-up wells, just stood there in the doorway, arms crossed over her faded calico dress, not a word of protest. She'd called me a burden since the day Pa died in that mine collapse 5 years back, leaving us scraping by on this god-forsaken patch of arid dirt. Ugly duckling, they'd whisper when they thought I wasn't listening, or louder when they wanted to twist the knife. Plain Eliza, with her two-eyed mouth and eyes that held no fire. Nothing like the saloon girls in town who turned heads with a flutter of lashes. But I wasn't plain inside. No, there was a wildfire burning in my chest. One they'd never see because they were too busy stomping it out. That morning, before the storm hit, I'd overheard them in the barn. Their voices slurred from the bottle, they passed like a sacred rite. Jack Harlan's put out word he's looking for a wife. Wyatt had snickered, his boots kicking up hay. Battle-scarred old coot, tougher than boot leather. Lost his woman in a raid years ago. Indians or outlaws, who knows? Bet he'd take anything with a pulse, even our Eliza. Silas had roared with laughter, slapping his knee. Hell, we'll send her packing with a note saying she's eager as a spring filly. He pays the travel gold, we pocket it, and goodbye to the extra mouth. 2 birds, 1 shot. My heart had plummeted like a stone in a well. Jack Harlaner, Nahum whispered in town like a legend carved from the Badlands themselves. Rancher with land stretching farther than the eye could see, but marked by scars from God knows what battles. Folks said he was handsome in a rugged way, with piercing blue eyes that could freeze a man in his tracks. But his heart was as barren as the plains after a drought. Widowed, wary, and wealthy enough to buy silence about his past. And now, my kin was selling me off like a lame horse at auction. I wanted to scream, to fight, but what good would it do? In this world, a woman alone was as good as dust in the wind. I packed in silence, the storm building outside like my own gathering rage. A faded quilt Ma had stitched before Pa's death, its threads worn thin from too many cold nights. My tattered journal, pages filled with scribbled dreams of a life beyond this hell, maybe running my own spread, or finding a man who saw past the surface to the soul beneath, and the silver locket from Grandma, cool against my skin, holding a faded tintype of her young face, fierce and unbowed. Strength ain't in looks, child, she'd told me once, her voice like gravel under wagon wheels. It's in the fight you don't show. I tucked it under my blouse, a talisman against the unknown, swallowing the lump in my throat. Tears. No, not for them. I'd cried enough rivers in secret. The wagon driver, a grizzled old-timer named Hank with a chew-stained beard and eyes squinting from years under the sun, tipped his hat as I climbed aboard. Miss Harrington. Storms brewin' fierce. You sure 'bout this? I nodded, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. Ain't no choice, Hank. Let's ride. As the mules lurched forward, Silas and Wyatt's jeers faded into the howl, but Ma's silence cut deepest. She didn't even wave. The homestead shrank behind us, swallowed by the swirling brown haze. And I wondered if I'd ever see it again, or if I even wanted to. The trail westward snaked through treacherous badlands, jagged rocks clawing at the sky like angry fingers. Every jolt of the wagon sent shocks up my spine, but it was my mind that raced wilder than any Mustang. What if Jack Harlan took one look at me and laughed, just like my brothers? Or worse, sent me back with nothing but shame? Rumors swirled in my head like the Dusty's first wife, beautiful and bold, cut down in a brutal raid that left him broken. Did he seek a bride out of loneliness, or just to fill the empty spaces on his vast ranch? My heart ached with a mix of fear and foolish hope. In the quiet moments, I dreamed of love like the stories Grandma spun by the fire, two souls forging something unbreakable in the forge of the frontier. But dreams were fragile things out here, easily shattered by reality. Hours blurred into a haze of choking dust and relentless wind. Hank hummed old trail songs, his voice rough as sandpaper, tales of gold rushes and lost loves that tugged at my insides. "You got grit, girl," he said once, glancing back. "Harlan's a hard man, but fair. Fought in the wars down south, they say. Came back with scars inside and out." I nodded, clutching my locket, imagining those blue eyes would they see me as a burden or something more. The thought sent a flutter through me, unwelcome and thrilling. Love, I scoffed inwardly. I wasn't here for fairy tales. I was here to survive. But deep down, in that secret place where hopes hid, I wondered if a man like him could kindle the spark I'd buried so long. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky blood red, the storm eased just enough to reveal the Harlan Ranch sprawling like a kingdom carved from the earth. Fences stretched endless, cattle lowing in the distance, and a sturdy house rose against the horizon, smoke curling from the chimney like a promise of warmth. My pulse thundered as the wagon creaked to a stop. There he stood by the gate, Jack Harlan, taller than I'd imagined, broad shoulders straining his faded shirt, a dark hat shadowing his face. His jaw was set like granite, stubble rough, but those eyes, piercing blue, locking onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. "You're Miss Harrington." His voice was gravelly, deep as a canyon echo, yet there was a gentleness in it, like the first rain after drought. No mockery, no pity, just a measured nod as he extended a calloused hand to help me down. I hesitated, dust clinging to my skirt, my plain features surely a sight after the journey. "Yes, sir, Eliza." My voice came out softer than intended, laced with the exhaustion of body and soul. He glanced at my small bundle. "Travel light. Come on, in supper's waitin'." No questions, no judgments. Just that simple offer, cracking something open in my chest I'd kept locked tight inside. The house smelled of stew and fresh bread, a far cry from the stale cornbread back home. Jack's sister, Clara, bustled from the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour, warm brown eyes lighting up. She was older than him by a few years, lines of hard living etched around her smile. But it was genuine, wrapping around me like a hug. "Lord, child, you look half drowned in dust." "I'm Clara. Sit, eat. We've been expecting you." I sat, hands trembling as I took the bowl she offered. The warmth seeped into my fingers, but it was their kindness that thawed the ice in my veins. Jack ate quietly across from me, his presence filling the room like the mountains themselves. Every glance his way stirred something unfamiliar, pull, like gravity drawing me in. Was it fear, gratitude, or the first whisper of something deeper, a connection born from shared scars?